So this is what happens when you try to do the kind of episode you should really just do like right after a trailer comes out and get in on the ground floor of something, and instead you take 3 days to do it. You say, oh no, I'll wait a couple days and I'll really put some work into it, and then you wait, however many days it's been. It's like, oh, this will be a nice stress-free time to work on it, and then we're at fucking war. Great. Okay, yeah, I'm literally doing this like maybe 12 hours after this Venezuela shit started. Who knows? Anyway, there's a new trailer for they're rebooting Malcolm in the Middle. Wow, they're rebooting Malcolm in the Middle. Great. Run some clips.
Malcolm has been intentionally hiding himself from this family for years.
You can't spend the rest of your life hiding and denying your family even exists.
Worked perfectly until they showed up.
Okay, so spoiler alert. So I guess the twist here, or where I will break with probably anyone else reacting to the fact that they're doing Malcolm in the Middle again, is that I fucking hate Malcolm in the Middle. I always have. I hated it when it was new. I hated it in reruns. I hate hearing it about it. I just never ever liked this show. Which, hey, great. Good way to lose subscribers and lose money. So probably the worst reason to do this. If you're still watching, thank you very much. Check out the links below. Drop some money into the Patreon and the coffee or whatnot. Or maybe if you hate that, and that's maybe drop off a parting gift. Who knows? Anyway, yeah, I just never liked this. I know that all millennials are supposed to worship this series because it was the fourth wall break network sitcom that came before Modern Family. And unlike Modern Family, this show was grimy and cynical and working class instead of being heartwarming and upscale and politically correct. And yeah, I know. I actually was a nerdy kid from a working class neighborhood, so I didn't need to ironically romanticize how much that sucked.
Why aren't you laughing, Dad? This is how people actually talk.
And, also, as we've discussed a few times on the show, I don't really identify as millennial. I am late Gen X at best. Sorry, born in 1981, I know people debate where that cuts off, but I don't care that much about generational identifiers either way, but they're kind of stupid. But to the degree that it matters, at least 3 of the distinctions that remind me I'll never be able to consider myself properly millennial, not that I have any great fondness for the rest of Generation X either, is that I can't pretend Attack of the Clones isn't still the worst Star Wars thing, and that I'll always maintain that Malcolm in the Middle and Friends both kind of sucked.
Your booze mean nothing. I've seen what makes you cheer.
If you love this show and you're excited for a reboot, great. I'm super happy for you. It doesn't make you a bad person. It just probably makes you exactly 38 years old or younger, in which case, happy times. Good for you, and enjoy hating me in the comments. I hope it brings you great joy and me a lot of traffic, because my AdSense could use it. And to save you some time, yes, I've probably seen the actually kind of funny clip you're about to show me to prove me wrong. It doesn't make me like the rest of the show, but it is probably funny. Like, I've seen all of the military parts. I've seen them running over the cake. I've seen the beginning and the ending. I've seen the Malcolm Plays The Sims episode. I've seen when the kid in the wheelchair puts on the mecha suit and is able to beat the middle brother because he let his legs go numb. I've seen all of it. I've seen the show. Yes, I agree. It had funny supporting characters outside of the main cast. I love the military commander guy. I love the older brother's wife. I think that the extra kid they added in the last couple seasons was a fun commentary on added extra characters. I liked when Cloris Leachman was on the show, for example. Yes, I do in fact know that the dad is the same actor who played Walter White on Breaking Bad, and I think that's an amusing juxtaposition. Yes, I get the reference in Krellboyne, the derisive nickname of Malcolm's gifted class, being borrowed from Rick Moranis' character in Little Shop of Horrors, a great movie and one of my favorites. If you've never seen that, watch it. It just rules. And yes, I can appreciate that you might have been very young, younger than me, possibly Malcolm's age when this show was originally airing in the early 2000s, and you may not have had control of your home TV schedule, and this was very different from every other formula sitcom your family may have been watching, and you related to it on a deeply personal level. I get that. That doesn't mean it's good, though, it just means you imprinted on it. That also doesn't mean you're wrong, it's just not the reason you might be right.
You just blew my mind! Our minds have been blown!
And by that same reasoning, I was around 19, 20 years old when this thing started, and that might have been why I wasn't that impressed. See, when I was watching it, my first immediate impression was that, yeah, okay, this is just an inferior, less good, much more mean-spirited, mostly unfunny knockoff of The Adventures of Pete and Pete, which was a show that I'd basically committed to memory half a decade prior. So I don't really need to watch what I immediately and then consistently clocked as a less good version of that, but made by and aimed at smug assholes. And think about what it means for me to say that anything is for smug assholes.
Why the hell do you have to be so critical?
I'm a critic.
And, you know, as far as other edgy alternative sitcoms went, I mean, I'd already seen Duckman, I'd seen Chris Elliott's Get a Life, I'd had Married with Children for multiple seasons before this. And I mean, Roseanne had been on the air for a decade and had only ended 3 years prior to this with plenty of imitators and successors, so we weren't really hurting for comedies supposedly about working class or blue-collar families. Hell, King of the Hill had started 3 years before Malcolm and ran 4 years longer, and that was a better show than this. In fact, since we'd landed on the subject of Fox Network programming, can we get real here for a minute? The reason Fox was so eager, in my opinion, to shove this specific series down America's throat once it caught on was because A, it came close to fulfilling what had been their #1 unanswered prayer for a decade in the rough outline of, will someone please deliver us a live-action version of The Simpsons, and B, it was the first time since Married with Children that they'd managed to launch an actually popular sitcom starring white people, and that means you can get commercial spots from more expensive advertisers.
Oops, I said the quiet part loud and the loud part quiet. Oh dear.
Did you know that, by the way, that apart from The Simpsons being its merchandise cash cow, in the mid to late 90s, the way Fox Network actually got out and set itself apart from ABC, NBC, CBS was leaning into being the default black content network thanks to In Living Color, Martin, Living Single, that whole run, which, you know, good for them because you got to differentiate yourself somehow and those shows got to thrive and good. But from a business perspective, they won't admit it, but advertisers, especially more so back then, still see white dollars as bigger dollars, so if you wanted bigger ad buys, you wanted Seinfeld and Friends audience more so than you wanted, yeah.
I should really pick up that milk now before I forget.
You son of a bitch!
And plus, at a certain point, UPN started getting the urban demographic better than Fox, so they were over the fucking moon when Malcolm finally hit, because not only did they have a hit comedy again, it was the right kind of hit comedy. And it's not like this was a big secret. Mad TV was calling them out on this on the same network.
You want to know what the worst part about childhood is? White people.
Yes, it's Malcolm X in the Middle, Fox's first hit comedy in 5 years. And even we can't believe it.
Let me ask you something. Why is angel food cake white and devil's food cake black? Think about it.
See the show the New York Times has called unaccountably funny.
And you know, I didn't even really understand this much of why these were the aspects of the show, other than, hey, look, it just wasn't hitting for me. It wasn't really hitting my brain chemistry the way it seemed to hit the brain chemistry of everyone else just a couple years younger than me. Until I actually tried to think about it one time and tried to come up with a one-sentence description to explain the concept of Malcolm in the Middle to someone who said that they had never seen it. And I said, hey, okay, try to imagine basically The Simpsons, but in live action, and they gender-flipped Homer and Lisa, and the boy version of Lisa was the main character. And I thought, wow, yeah, that's basically it. And does that sound like a good show?
No.
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 No. No.
No. No.
No?
No. No.
No.
And also, I think that Lois on Malcolm, her name was Lois, right? The mom from Malcolm's name is Lois, because these people didn't even have last names. They made that into what they thought was the cleverest joke ever. But okay, Malcolm's mom, basically being Homer but a woman, was something that the show turned into its big selling point. Can we get real for a minute here that this is one of the most toxic, unpleasant, mean, hateful characters that TV has ever created? And everyone was expected to treat her like she wasn't exactly that, because usually you don't get to see a mom act like this. Well, okay, but I don't really want to see anyone act like this. And listen, I understand the concept, conceptually, that yes, it is interesting that TV dads are often allowed to be boorish assholes, and we let them get away with that, often celebrate them for it, and that's a bad thing. but that doesn't necessarily make it like some glass ceiling breaking thing for female characters and actresses. Not that Jane Kaczmarek is not a very funny actress and good in other things, and that she doesn't have interesting, funny moments here. And I know that I will get people saying, oh, you would like it if it was a TV dad doing it. No, I hate the version of TV dads that did this. I never watched According to Jim, or whatever the fuck. Those shows sucked. It doesn't make it somehow better or more interesting just because basically a less good version of the jerk-ass Homer era of The Simpsons gets to be played by a woman in live action. And I feel like once they got a little bit of credit for the gimmick of a TV show where the boorish asshole was the mom instead of the dad, they leaned into it and made her even worse than any TV dad got to be because people were telling them that they were great about it. Almost to the extent that a flip-around version of this is one of the best cutaways that Family Guy ever did.
We now return to Malcolm in the Middle.
What would you do? I'm talking to you! You know what? That's what I'm gonna do! I'm gonna go on strike, and you can all try living without me! You didn't think about that, huh? That's what I'm gonna do! I'm gonna do that! I'm gonna go on strike!
Kids, we're free.
Okay, so watching it back through the edit, I feel like I need to say more here because I can tell people are going to be mad at me about this part specifically because I used that cutaway and laughed about it and maybe I didn't adequately explain or acquit myself, so I need to make this perfectly clear because, yes, obviously 110% it is true that popular culture holds women characters to different standards, so just like I understand why a younger generation of TV viewers may have seen something in this show, whereas I always bounced right off of it, a lot of people, women in particular, really sincerely got something out of the novelty of Malcolm's mom being able to act the way that only dads got to act on crass TV sitcoms, specifically being an explosively temperamental, crude, mean brute terrorizing their family as a petty cartoon tyrant, while also being rewarded for it with praise and affirmation by the in-camera narrative and the audience. I get that. I understand why that worked for so many people. I get it. However, no, it's not the same thing, in my opinion, since we use that clip as Peter from Family Guy, because those are two different types of character. Peter Griffin is meant to be a parody of dumb, crass, chaotic sitcom dads, whereas Malcolm's mom Lois is arguably a gender-inverse subversion of the trope. We can argue which achieves their aim more successfully. I'm not gonna sit here and say that Family Guy, or Peter in it specifically, are the top flight of any version of any genre, but they are two different aims. I also very much get, like everything else on the show, Malcolm in the Middle, and like many characters on TV in general in its era, in every era, that Lois had more nuance to begin with and became more defined by this handful of traits as it went on because the creators recognized that this is specifically what the audience responded to and then kept giving them more. I know the internet likes to call this flanderization. I also think that's stupid, but that's another show maybe. But that's also kind of my point here. Most of the things that I ended up disliking most intently about this series as it went on were the things that the rest of popular culture seemed to like most about it, and that's definitely what shaped it and will probably continue to shape it in this reboot. Like, they will probably give us more Lois being Lois because they want the audience to laugh at that. That's what the audience is expecting. If she comes back and she's suddenly a completely different character, I'll be impressed, but people will probably not like it. And also, this is a fitting segue to the original back half of this, I'm aware that the show was at frequent pains to explain that this character wasn't meant to be seen as at fault for being as obnoxious as they were, that she wasn't always like this, that she became like this because the boys were so bad, that her husband was basically useless, that she was only responding to what an awful bunch of people her family was, and that she had to put up with them. But you do see how that's not really better, right? Because that's still stuff that the writers had to write just like they wrote her original characterization. And that this isn't even some nobody should ever write characters thing from me as a criticism. This is just a, this is why this version never worked for me criticism. I'm sure if you're still mad at me for disliking your favorite show or your favorite character, you are still mad at me, but I hope that explains it a little better. Anyway. But the thing is, nothing could explain away why I dislike this fucking show. And it's not even that much the show. The show I just think is a bad show that I dislike, and everyone has the one bad show that they kind of like. The only like cult classic TV show that I've never heard anyone say that they super dislike when people say it, rather than, you know what, I never just got it, is like the Drew Carey Show. I've never heard anyone say when people are going on about, oh, the Drew Carey Show, it's the best thing ever, you've got to check it out. I've never heard anyone turn around and say, I fucking hate it. That show killed my family. I've never heard anyone, I've heard people say, you know what, I never got it, and just like move on from it. I've never heard anyone say they hate the Drew Carey. I've heard people say they hate Seinfeld. I've heard people say they hate Twin Peaks. I've heard people say they hate, I've heard people say they hate Mystery Science Theater. For real, I've heard it. I've heard it. I've heard people say that they thought that show abused and disrespected the movies and the B-movie concept. I've heard people blame that show for why people won't behave in movie theaters. For real. But I've never heard anyone say they despise the Drew Carey show, which I think actually comes down to the fact that Drew Carey just seems like the least dislikable man who ever lived. See, this is what happens when I leave a freestyle note in the script, is that it goes off on these tangents. So, okay, I will clearly have to do a Drew Carey episode at some point to explain why that is the great, up until recently, sort of forgotten show that people should remember. I think the Drew Carey show was better than Seinfeld. I think that's the actual great cult sitcom of the 90s. Absolutely better than Friends. Absolutely. But definitely, I would say between the two, the Drew Carey show was the better stand-up guy doing a sitcom sort of based on his stand-up than Seinfeld. Yeah, I would say Drew Carey was better. Anyway, thing is, nothing could explain why I dislike Malcolm in the Middle other than that other people in the generation just a little bit behind mine in my own generation constantly talk about how great it is, and when I say, you know, I don't actually care for it, you know, you're wrong, watch this clip, watch this great part. Guys, I just don't like it stuff. No, you're not allowed to dislike it. You're not allowed to dislike it. But the thing that really crystallizes why I think I disliked Malcolm in the Middle, just generally, conceptually, more so than the actual show, just its place in popular culture, is the stupid fucking way they decided to end it. Because nothing is worse than a show that you already don't think is very good, deciding that it has something to say, which is what it did in its final episode, where this basically happens.
We are not gonna let you throw your life away.
How is being rich throwing my life away?
Because it's not the life you're supposed to have. The life you're supposed to have is you go to Harvard, and you earn every fellowship and internship they have. You graduate first in your class, and you start working in public service, either district attorney or running some foundation, and then you become governor of a mid-sized state, and then you become president.
What?
Of the United States.
Dad!
I'm sorry, son. It's true.
Thought you knew.
Our expectations started out much smaller, but you just kept upping the ante.
Did it ever occur to you that I could have taken this job, gotten really rich, and then bought my way into being president?
Of course it did. We decided against it.
What?
Because then you wouldn't be a good president. You wouldn't have suffered enough.
I've been suffering all my life.
I'm sorry. It's not enough.
Okay, so never mind that this reads and plays like a dumb retcon of their own premise and pretext, whether the showrunners had it planned for a while or from the beginning or whatever. It doesn't work. It doesn't hold up. The idea that all of the borderline to over-the-line abuse Malcolm's family has put him through is just some elaborate plan to turn him into this great man of history doesn't make sense and contradicts a ton of the other points in the series where it's clear that these people weren't in any way Machiavellian enough to be working in that way, and also where the show made it a point to tell us that Malcolm wasn't exactly as brilliant as he thought he was. It doesn't tie any of the themes together or subvert the characters in some meaningful way. It's not even really a twist of any kind. It's just this series' version of pandering to the audience for back-patting pablum because the show was ending around 2006 and class analysis was turning into a trendy topic again, so it was time to tie some kind of self-righteousness to these characters' generic shittiness by refocusing the context onto, well, it's because they don't have a lot of money, so that actually makes all this behavior okay.
Have you decided my position on capital gains tax cuts? What are my foreign policy objectives?
That doesn't matter. What does matter is you'll be the only person in that position who will ever give a crap about people like us. We've been getting the short end of the stick for thousands of years, and I, for one, am sick of it. Now you are going to be president, mister, and that's the end of it.
Message!
And it wouldn't even be that much more annoying than the average amount that the show had always been annoying, except they clearly think that this is their real talk now, folks. This is what it's all about, Coda. That this is where the snark and the smugness can drop back, and we finally understand what Malcolm in the Middle really wanted to say to us, and what it has to say is breathtakingly stupid.
I've been suffering all my life!
I'm sorry. It's not enough. You know what it's like to be poor, and you know what it's like to work hard. Now you're gonna learn what it's like to sweep floors and bust your ass and accomplish twice as much as all the kids around you. And it won't mean anything because they will still look down on you. And you will want so much for them to like you, and they just won't. And it'll break your heart. And that'll make your heart bigger and open your eyes, and finally you will realize that there's more to life than proving you're the smartest person in the world. Message!
Unbelievable. You actually expect me to be president. No, I'm sorry. You expect me to be one of the greatest presidents in the history of the United States.
You look me in the eye and you tell me you can't do it.
Wow! You're an idiot!
Like, I'm sorry, folks. Of all the things for your relentlessly cynical, everything is stupid and everyone sucks but Malcolm show to suddenly develop a righteous poise about great political leadership will only emerge from the crucible of the impoverished suffering is the dumbest thing you could have picked, especially in the context of a turn-of-the-century middle American TV sitcom. Like, this is like if Seinfeld actually had become about prison reform in its final moments. Because it's phony. It's fake. Malcolm will be a great president because he grew up poor-ish and resents all of his snobby peers in the Ivy Leagues and remembers where he came from. That's just some feel-good audience kiss-ass bullshit, the kind that you write when you either don't know or don't think your audience knows that that exact backstory better describes how you'd create a roster of historical dictators than concerned leaders. Or, for that matter, that the only actual modern US president whose origin story it would most closely resemble would be Richard Nixon. Which would be a great joke, maybe a better joke than anything else Malcolm in the Middle had ever told, if that's what they meant. But it's really clear from the way that the rest of it plays out, with the goodwill hunting-ass coda that they stick on it, that that's not what they're going for. They're being sincere about this. Sincerely dumb. Which is why the only thing that gives me any kind of hope about this teaser that they've thrown up for this, which basically doesn't tell us anything about it other than, hey, Malcolm in the Middle's coming back. Don't you want to reconnect with all these characters? No! I hated these people. Right now, the only one of them I sympathize with is Dewey because his actor did what I would like to do, not be involved in this. But it also doesn't seem like they're setting up to immediately pay off all of the politics and president stuff because it doesn't look like Malcolm has done any of it. So maybe they're going to retcon their way out of it or get back into being even more smug about stuff and just say that no, he didn't actually do any of that and they were wrong and, you know, get out of the ending business that they wrote themselves into. Or maybe not. Maybe we'll get another spin towards that and it will end with Malcolm heading into the presidency with some weak sauce jokes about, well, could we do any worse at this point? Which, okay, fair, but also kind of a cheesy joke. Like, everyone could make that joke now. We can't do jokes about bad presidents now because we've now had the worst of all presidents. I hope. See, that's not even a funny joke. Even that isn't a funny joke anymore. We've burned out that joke. You can't do the, oh, a monkey became president, oh, a dog became president, oh, a duck became... You can't do it anymore. Everything else is either too ridiculous, too cartoony, or too dark and extreme. South Park just did through an entire season for it, and the overwhelming feeling that I got from it was kind of, okay, all right. This isn't meaningfully funnier, in my opinion, than, you know, Family Guy's version of a Trump joke, and they blew through it in 2 episodes in the first term. Look, our version of Trump is not meaningfully different from our version of Saddam. Ha 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 ha. Okay. Interesting take, guys. Okay? Like, the worst thing you have to say about this guy is that he reminds you of... That's another episode. Anyway, maybe this will be funny. I don't have like a big summation ending here because I know this just feels like I'm bitching that, you know, now the reboot and nostalgia cycle has flipped a little bit over from stuff that my generation loved to stuff that the next generation down loved. Now I have to deal with stuff that I never gave a shit about being treated like a big deal, and I sound like a bitter old man about it.
I used to be with it, but then they changed what it was. Now what I'm with isn't it, and what's it seems weird and scary to me. It'll happen to you.
I never loved Malcolm in the Middle, and now this is going to be a thing, so okay, fine, whatever. You know, for a long time I thought that there was maybe a whole episode in the ending of Malcolm in the Middle is stupid because that's the exact wrong recipe for building a strong leader, because that's just Nixon's backstory. I actually thought that was like worth a whole episode, and then when I sat down to say it out loud on the occasion of this, there's really not much more to say about it than that. Maybe there might have been like 10 or 12 years ago, but now it kind of feels more obvious than it did. Also, people have been telling me, hey, you either sound sad or overly positive about things, so hey, let's try an angry episode. Okay, here's an angry episode. It really annoys me that we're rebooting Malcolm in the Middle of all fucking things. But okay, let's see how this tracks. Let's see what the traffic looks like. Happy New Year. This stuff in Venezuela really seems to suck. I hope that doesn't get worse. Fingers crossed. Please hit the Patreon and the Ko-fi links and everything else. Help a guy out, because we could use it. As ever, I love and cherish all fans, followers, viewers. Please click the links. Pay it forward. New things on the horizon, etc. Life is unfair.